Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Okay, I understand we have a make good here because we had a script that was inaccurate yesterday. It's Thursday, Ryan. It's Friday. Look at this. It's okay. It's Friday.
You got to make a little adjustment, Mr. BC Sports Hall of Famer. Usually the script is for yesterday. That's why it says Thursday.
I wasn't going to say anything, but the person who made the mistake yesterday was.
Yeah, and I'm making good for it today. I'm fixing the mistake.
All today's guests, including Thomas Drance standing by, are brought to you by the Vancouver Giants. Giants are at the LEC on Saturday night to face Wenatchee. They don't have a double dip this weekend, right? Puck, you want
Not
to
at
check
the
that out?
LEC.
Yeah.
Not at the LEC.
A home double dip. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. Visit VancouverGiants.com/tickets for ticket details. I don't know if he's in Boston or Detroit.
Where is he? Somewhere on the road.
But Thomas Drance, who covers the Canucks like nobody else from The Athletic, joins us now. How are you, sir?
Doing well. I'm still in Boston. I'm going to go see Tom Villander and the Celebrini brothers play tonight. Boston University hosts Merrimack. So figured I'd stay behind, see some Canucks prospects, and fly home out of Boston so that I'm settled in time for the Super Bowl.
Yes, the older Celebrini, of course, a Canuck prospect. What are you hearing about, as I put you on the spot here, we'll get to last night's game in a second. What are you hearing about Tom Villander and the season he's having?
Yeah, he played and advanced to the Beanpot final on Monday. I can tell you that Patrick Alvin was there. I can tell you that the organization's very happy with his development overall. The speed, the defensive game has translated well in his first season over in North America. I don't think there's a rush to sign him. I think the club's going to be happy to let him spend a couple years at the NCAA level. I think partly that's about where his game is at, and I think partly it's an organizational view based on the history of some of the top defensemen who've come through the NCAA ranks, whether it's Quinn Hughes. Now, granted, his first NCAA season was his draft-eligible campaign, but he spent 2 years at Michigan. McAvoy spent 2 years at, one of the Boston area colleges. And Werenski spent 2 years in Michigan. I think that looms large in the Canucks thinking about this. So I do expect Villander to be back at BU next season. I think the club's very happy with his progression overall, and are hoping to see over the balance of this campaign, and should he play a second NCAA campaign, him take a step to be a little more assertive offensively, a little less conservative in his decision making. So I think that's sort of the area for improvement. And there's your Villander. You can put me on the spot, Donnie. I've got it.
I know. Just in case.
I'm ready to go.
I don't know why I said that. I have all the confidence in the world in you. Oh, by the way, Villander, 13 points, 24 games for the Terriers. He's plus 15. Okay, 4-0. Bruins beat the Canucks. Your takeaway from last night?
Yeah, I didn't think they played a 4-0 game, to be totally honest with you. Like, it was one of those games where every mistake the Canucks made just was in the back of their net. You have a puck handling errors, a little bit of miscommunication. Maybe you'd prefer some power play personnel to be tracking back a little bit more, with a little bit more urgency on that first goal. And boom, Brad Marchand, it's in the back of the net. You have a sort of smart play to foil one of those interchanges between Hughes and Miller up high. We see them all the time. Teams are cheating up high, covering the Canucks power play more and more right now. I think that's why the Lindholm edition matters so much, right? Try and get teams to have to respect the net front a little bit more. Anyway, Coyle foils that, and it's a breakaway the other way. Boom, back of the net. And then that weird bouncer. If you go watch the replay on that, Pasternak hits four things off Tyler Myers' skate, off Tyler Myers' stick. Absolutely no one's fault. Like, the puck's in the back of the net before Pasternak's stick hits the ground. Just like a complete weirdo bouncer. Nothing you can do about that. That's one of those, how do you like them apples goals, especially because it's in Boston. You can't dwell on it. And then, one actual bad breakdown. And that breakdown on the fourth goal, the Pavel Zacha rush goal, that was the worst defensive sequence of the night for the Canucks. But you're going to have those, especially against fast teams that counterattack smartly, like the Boston Bruins. When the Canucks have had moments like that earlier in the season and in other games, They've gotten the stops. I sort of look at it and, you don't love seeing 4 shorthanded goals against in the last 3 games, for example, but I'm pretty sure that's noise. The people who play on the Canucks PP1, like, they're good defensively. I don't think that's going to be a trend. I think that's a blip. The only thing I'd sort of note, taking away the 2 games that I saw this week in Carolina and in Boston, was, the Canucks had 10 shots on goal with the top 6 forward group on the ice in about 38 minutes, something like that, 38 minutes of ice time. Now, you'd have to look long and hard with a magnifying glass to find better defensive teams than you'll find in Raleigh and Boston. These are the elite of the elite in terms of defensive teams. But, we saw the Canucks make a trade for Elias Lindholm for a reason. They need more push from their top 6. And, the only place you'll more reliably find elite defensive teams, right, than in Raleigh and Boston is in the games that count, in the conference final, in the second round. I do think I do get a little, a small C concern, like a trend that I'm watching out of these 2 games, because I have zero concerns about the Canucks losing in regulation for the 3rd time since early December. But I do think their top 6 needs to generate a few more chances 5-on-5. I think the more games that go by with Connor Garland and Dakota Joshua being this team's most dangerous even strength generators, the more that happens, the more concerned I get about this team's ability to generate with their top players on the ice at even strength against the best of the best defensive teams in this league.
What do you make of the Canucks poking around Phil Kessel, Thomas?
Yeah, I find it interesting, Rick. As I think it through, I wonder if it makes sense only in the event that another shoe drops. I kind of look at this team right now, and, I guess my question would be, does the club think that Kessel could be another body to compete for one of those sort of top 6 forward spots with, your Pius Suter, Ilya Mikheyev class guy? Or do they view him as a guy to add offensive punch in the bottom 6? Because if it's the former, right, if they think he's another body to compete with the sort of other top 6 options, I think that might be above his pay grade at this stage of his career. And if it's the latter, it feels like a redundant piece, given that the club has Garland and Höglander, both of whom are super reliable, like offensive drivers in the bottom 6, and sort of profile similarly. It's hard for me to understand how it would fit, Rick. And given that the Canucks carved out some additional cap flexibility in the Lindholm trade, I kind of look at it and think, would an additional rush scoring specialist winger who can help you on PP2, is that a higher leverage addition for this team than another depth forward with size who can maybe contribute on the PK? Or more defensive depth, or keeping your powder dry cap-wise in case you need to pivot due to injury before March 8th. For me, those 3 needs, I'd rank them higher than adding another skilled bottom 6 forward like Kessel, who I still think has game, right? I think there are scenarios where if the pieces move around on the board, a Kessel ad could make sense. But as the Canucks sit today, it feels like it would be certainly a curious way to use the club's very limited cap flexibility and roster spots ahead of March 8th.
Well, the coach was raving about him in Toronto last weekend. Tocchet was raving about Kessel.
Close relationship there.
Yep, the absolute great relationship, by the way, Tocchet and Kessel. Mikheyev's getting a lot of heat right now, not scoring. I think it's been 19 games. What's going on with him? And you can't have Pettersson have a winger who hasn't scored 19 games.
Yeah, Ilya Mikheyev's speed hasn't returned this season in the wake of his ACL surgery. And again, this is he's still fast. He's just Ilya Mikheyev was prior to this injury. And I believe that he will be again, by the way, right? I think it takes some time post ACL to get that burst back. But, the Ilya Mikheyev that we saw in Toronto was the 3rd or 4th fastest skating human being on the planet, right? He flies. And that's something that'll pop off the ice when he's fully healthy. I think he's fully healthy. I just think when you have surgery to repair a torn ACL, it can take 12 to 18 to 24 months for 100% capacity to return. I think that's the fundamental first line item that has to be discussed in Ilya Mikheyev's evaluating Ilya Mikheyev this season. And then the other part of it, the finishing part of it, he's been extremely productive ever since he arrived in Vancouver, but maybe a little overproductive given his career shooting clips where 8-ish%. He's been 13% since arriving in Vancouver. He led the NHL in on-ice shooting percentage, for about 70 games upon joining the Canucks organization. Neither of those things were going to last. And so I think part of what we're seeing is regression. Part of what we're seeing is, that he's still sort of in the building full strength back phase of his post-surgical recovery. And, I think that line as a whole, Pettersson's line as a whole has struggled over the course of the last 9 games. So, that's partly what we're seeing there too. I still think Ilya Mikheyev's a super useful forward. I think he'll be a play driver for this team again, but maybe not down the stretch. It might take another offseason, right? And another sort of extended bout to strengthen and recover before that full burst, that superpower burst that Mikheyev has had throughout his career returns. So, I do think we need to manage our expectations a bit. I still think he's doing a lot of little things very well.
All right. Thanks so much, Thomas. We appreciate it. And I don't know if you're having lobster tonight like the Canucks did the other night, but enjoy Boston and enjoy watching Tom Wielander and Boston U tonight.
Yeah, I did my seafood feast with Ian McIntyre on Wednesday. We went hard.
You went hard.
Apparently,
on
so did the
seafood?
Canucks.
Wow.
Apparently, so did the Canucks,
yeah.
Thomas. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, come on.
Thanks
Cheers.
so much.